For years, the idea of a computer virus causing a real-world disaster was relegated to the works of science fiction. But in 2010, that changed. That was when a group of cybersecurity professionals discovered Stuxnet. Stuxnet was a malware worm that attacked Iran's nuclear program. It was the first cyber weapon that could destroy a real-world target. Stuxnet manipulated system software so that human operators thought everything was running fine, while it destroyed uranium enrichment centrifuges. Most shocking of all, Stuxnet was reportedly created by two nation-states, the US and Israel, to attack Iran during a time of peace. We now live in the era of a new arms race, where a malicious piece of code can threaten an untold number of human lives. Malware implants can attack computer systems in the simplest of ways. Servers can be forced to record unnecessary data over and over again. This causes all free memory on a server to be used up at an accelerated rate, ultimately leading to a system crash. Military and civilian networks could be brought down this way. In fact, Stuxnet's successor was reportedly designed to accomplish exactly that. Nitro Zeus, a cyber weapon developed by the Defense Department, was created to wreak havoc on an entire country's infrastructure. This weapon could shut down communication systems, power grids, and air defenses, all without the use of bombs or bullets. As with the nuclear arms race, cyber warfare's potential threat to human lives is immense. Despite this, malware as warfare remains a highly secretive practice. There has been very little dialogue or international diplomacy aimed at governing the use of cyber weapons. During the Stuxnet attack, the virus escaped and infected computers worldwide, leaving the blueprint for creating Stuxnet-like cyber weapons available to anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Affected us mainly in that the government sites were shut down, businesses were shut down, banks were targeted. All in all, they were fairly primitive in that, and if you talk to cyber crime, cyber war experts today, they said, well, okay, that was nice, but generally we're much more worried about other things today. That was, in fact, the first time we'd seen this used as an instrument of political or of policy. But these days, things can be much worse, which I agree. I mean, I guess it was more that there had been DDoS attacks previously against certain ministries. In fact, the UK, the German, the French, and the US ministries of defense or the Pentagon had all been attacked, but this was sort of all out.
Cet épisode révèle l'anxiété grandissante dans le monde occidental face à l'émergence de ces armes cybernétiques. Or, ces armes sont dangereuses, elles sont d'une nature nouvelle et elles risquent d'entraîner le monde dans un conflit électronique qui pourrait se transformer en affrontement armé, car ces armes virtuelles détruisent également le monde physique. En 1982, au cœur de la guerre froide, dans la Sibérie soviétique, un pipeline explose avec une détonation de 3 kilotonnes, l'équivalent d'un quart de la bombe d'Hiroshima. Or, nous le savons aujourd'hui, cela a été révélé par l'ancien secrétaire de l'US Air Force de Ronald Reagan, Thomas Reed. Cette explosion est en réalité le résultat d'une opération de sabotage de la CIA qui avait à l'époque réussi à s'infiltrer dans les systèmes informatiques de gestion de ce pipeline. Plus récemment, le gouvernement américain a révélé qu'en septembre 2008, c'est plus de 3 millions d'habitants de l'État de Espírito Santo au Brésil qui ont été plongés dans l'obscurité, victimes du chantage de cyberpirates.
Mafia Boy was the alternate ego of Michael Kals, who, in 2000, caused substantial damage to a series of high-profile websites, including Amazon, eBay, and Yahoo. He did this through a series of distributed denial-of-service attacks. Abbreviated as DDoS, this type of attack is a common tactic involving overwhelming websites with queries to the point that they no longer function. Mafia Boy used this approach and rendered its targets useless for hours. This resulted in millions of dollars worth worth of lost revenue. Naming the attack Project Revolta, Kassay was revealed to be a high school student at the time, obsessed with making a name for himself as a hacker. And he got that popularity, and I'm sure he's gonna be just as popular when he's bending over in jail. Well, he didn't actually go to jail. After being sentenced to 1 year probation, Kassay published a book about his experiences. And they say crime doesn't pay.
Attack or DDoS attack, you attempt to commit available resources on a system so that it cannot respond to valid requests from legitimate users. These attacks can be distributed and amplified by many other systems known as a botnet to commit the attack. Zombies are part of the botnet, and they are compromised hosts which are used to launch attacks against a specific target. The bot herder is the command and control center which notifies the zombies of who to attack. Here we can see a command and control system on the left. The attacker is notifying the bots or zombies via the handlers to attack a specific target. This is much more effective than attacking with a single machine. We call this a distributed denial of service attack because we have many different systems which can all be in different geographic locations or distributed to attack a single target.
Estonia, first of all, was much better prepared than I think almost any other country would have been, because we had just 2 months earlier, in fact, gamed cyber attacks, because we had our first national or general elections in which people could vote on the web. And since everyone anticipated, or we anticipated, that every hacker worth his salt would, as a matter of pride and honor, attempt to sabotage the elections, we actually went through what would happen if we got distributed denial of service or DDoS attacks. And figured out, well, if we got these things, then there are a number of strategies to follow, a number of partners in the European Union with which we sort of cooperated, or in the process of the wargaming or the gaming, decided if this happened, we would do that. There were no noticeable attacks during the election.
There's probably a lot more to do than we've done so far to truly get ready.
Stemming cyber threats, what if your utilities were hacked? What happens if the power grid goes down?
10 News reporter Matt Boone was at a first-of-its-kind conference today about how San Diego should prepare for such 21st century attacks.
Hosted by one of San Diego's largest tech companies, the discussion was on one of our biggest threats, a cyber attack to our infrastructure. And the question, are we ready?
We are as prepared as anybody, and probably better prepared.
That's retired Rear Admiral Ken Slatt, who helped organize the conference.
Because of the military presence here, that puts a pretty big target on our backs already.
The Navy and Marine Corps were both represented on the panel. Captain Mark Edelson oversees operations of naval facilities in the Southwest. If the power went down in San Diego, what would happen to the bases here?
Fortunately, our critical infrastructure, we have at least a backup generator.
That would keep the bases up and running. The bigger problem, says Marine Colonel Ian Clark, is how it affects people who live outside.
But if my people can't come to work, if the tenants and the military members can't come and fly those aircraft, then it's for naught in some respects.
Local government and the private sector were there as well. One speaker even did an example of a hack live for the audience.
People are going to use this against us when we least want it to happen and when it's most harmful to us.
Author William Forstchen gave the keynote, saying, while vulnerable, San Diego was serving as a model for cyber preparations.
But we're hearing planning here. We're hearing coordinating efforts to actually be proactive rather than reactive after a terrible event.
His tip, have enough supplies for living 30 days off the grid.
That's not being paranoid, that's being realistic.
In Sorrento Valley, Matt Boone, 10 News.
Well, is internet security in China a balancing act, you say? Well, whenever I hear civil servants in Whitehall using the word balance, I become distinctly uneasy. Often it's used to justify doing half of a wicked thing rather than not doing wicked things at all. And in fact, there is that kind of thing for the government in China. They can't simply turn off the internet because Chinese businesses live by export and they need to talk to Western customers. Chinese universities live by getting information from Western universities by reading research papers, downloading lecture notes, and so on, and they can't block that. They do want to block Falun Gong. They do want to block stuff related to the Dalai Lama. So it's hard. Ultimately, I think it's undoable. And all they're succeeding in doing is raising the bar for a little while. In the end, though, I believe that China, like everywhere else that develops, will become open and democratic like the West.
We've spoken about the psychological effects on the Estonian population, and also we've spoken briefly about what was happening within the country. But how do you feel Estonia's reputation has been affected by the attacks diplomatically when it comes to people's perspectives of the security of the networks system, the success of the network?
Well, I mean, I think that the immediate effect was the decision that had not been made because no one was, I mean, people weren't quite sure whether it was a necessary thing to do or not, but the immediate consequence was the establishment of the NATO Center for Excellence here. I mean, this was, so I think in terms of long-term political planning, that whoever planned it sort of shot themselves in the foot. I mean, because the immediate consequences to actually have a center to deal with. Just for background, I mean, we've been actually arguing this for a number of years in NATO, saying, look, this is an area, we know a little bit about it, we should be dealing with this, we need a NATO center. People said, well, yeah, that's an interesting idea, but, we're not there yet, and then so I mean, that really backfired on whoever wanted to harm the country, and I think it's made us more secure as well. I mean, I think people feel good about it, and we are. Well, I mean, why are you here? Will you come and ask us how it was? I mean, in fact, Estonia, without ever planning to be, has become a place with expertise on issues that we never wanted to have expertise on, but now we have it.
Impersonation or spoofing is where an individual attempts to impersonate a person who is authorized on your network by using their credentials. They can steal the credentials that are used to authenticate on the wireless local area network, because pre-shared keys are very susceptible to theft and dictionary attacks. You can also spoof a MAC address to trick the wireless local area network device into thinking that you are an authorized device attempting to connect. In order to prevent these type of attacks, you should use strong authentication mechanisms, preferably at least two-factor authentication, as well as digital signatures and one-time use passwords. You also have to be concerned about individuals intercepting your packets because this is very easy on public wireless networks. You should never use public wireless networks to perform any type of sensitive communications. If you do find yourself needing to use a public wireless network, you should use a virtual private network to encrypt the communications between you and your recipient. You should never use your passwords or log in to any websites using public Wi-Fi because individuals can capture your login session and then pretend to be you on that website. You also have to be concerned with individuals modifying or altering the data before you receive it.